Good day folks, Sean here from Air Photography. So both DJI and GoPro have released brand new action cameras over the last couple of weeks. Both are great cameras. They have their strengths and weaknesses and different features that might appeal to different types of users. The DJI Action 5 excels when it comes to battery performance, low light performance, thermal management, and just in my opinion, a more stable platform. Whereas the GoPro Hero 13 Black has higher resolution, it comes in at 5.3K compared to 4K. If you're filming for multiple platforms, it's easier to set different types of aspects with a GoPro. They have a framing tool built right in. Whereas with the Action 4, you do have to mount it vertically. You do actually have to physically rotate the camera if you need a portrait style video. The Hero 13 Black also has a new line of high quality lenses that could be important to some users as well. So throughout this video, I'm going to play some samples, side-by-side samples from each camera. We're going to talk about their characteristics and some of the features where each camera excels. All the videos that I'll show were shot at the highest quality for each camera. 5.3K 60 frames a second for the GoPro Hero 13 Black and 4K 60 frames per second for the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro. Everything else was shot in auto and there was no grading or editing of the footage. Now let's start out with some of the physical characteristics of each camera. Both cameras have an extremely high quality and durable build, which is very important for an action camera. Both cameras are capable of magnetic mounting, and that's something that's new with the Hero 13 Black this year. This is the first year we have magnetic mounting for it. Both work extremely well for what they are. The GoPro one does have a few extra benefits. First of all, the GoPro still has finger mounts in the bottom. So you still have the option of mounting it traditionally if that's your preferred method. But they fold up and the magnetic mount just fits right over top. The other benefit of it is that it is reversible. Whereas with the Action 5 magnetic mount, it will only go on one way. Now that's not too big of an issue, but it does come in handy if you do need to move your camera. Say you've got it mounted facing forward and then you want to mount it facing backward. With the Action 5, you would have to take the whole thumb screw out and rotate the whole camera. But because this magnetic mount is reversible, you don't have to undo the magnetic mount from the mount. All you would have to do is rotate the camera and lock it back in. However, when it comes to magnetic mounting, these magnetic mounts are not included with your GoPro when you purchase it. These have to be purchased separately. Whereas with your Action 5, depending on the kit you purchase, you'll either get one included with the package, and some packages include two of these magnetic mounts, so that's definitely something to keep in mind as well. Both cameras have a front-facing screen, which is extremely important for framing shots in some scenarios. However, the benefit of the DJI Action 5 Pro is that it is a touch screen, so you can change all your settings right from that front touch screen. You can't do that with the GoPro Hero 13 Black. And again, that's not something you're going to use all the time, but there are those situations if the camera is mounted in certain ways, perhaps the back isn't accessible, you can change everything from the front there, or if you have it mounted out in front of you on a bike or something, you have easy access to change all the settings. And new with the Action 5 this year is we have dual OLED screens, which actually look quite nice. And on top of that, when you look at the screen size here, the screen size on the Osmo Action 5 Pro is bigger. That larger screen can make it easier to navigate through the menu, and it can be nicer for framing shots, especially if the camera is mounted away from you. When it comes to battery performance, the Action 5 Pro definitely excels. Both cameras introduced new batteries, new higher capacity batteries this year. The Action 5 Pro has a battery rating when filming in 1080 of 4 hours. When filming at 4K 30, you can expect to capture for about 2 hours and 45 minutes. Whereas with the GoPro filming at 4K 30, you can expect to get about an hour and 45 minutes. Of course, it's going to depend on your settings. That's just kind of an average number, but you can get a good hour's more recording from the DJI. The other important thing to note with the Action 5 Pro batteries, they are backward compatible with older action cameras from DJI, such as the Action 3 and Action 4, and those older batteries will work on the new camera as well. Whereas the GoPro battery, the new one they introduced this year with the Hero 13 Black, is not backward compatible, so this battery cannot be used on older GoPros, and vice versa, those batteries cannot be used on the Hero 13 Black. When it comes to thermal performance, GoPro has made some improvements this year. You can definitely record a little bit longer, but it does still suffer from some overheating issues. Now it's going to depend on the scenario. Most likely, if you're outdoors with a lot of air movement, it will not overheat. If you have the camera mounted stationary somewhere on a hot day, if you're filming at 5.3K or 4K 60, there is a good chance that it will overheat. Whereas the Action 5 filming at 4K 30 or 4K 60, this thing generally does not overheat. So we're going to talk about some more features here coming up, but let's go ahead and take a look at some footage here. I'm just going to play the footage side by side in a couple different scenarios, different ways that I tend to use my action cameras. So here is an audio sample coming from the GoPro Hero 13 Black. We're using the built-in microphones. Again, this is just some audio with the built-in microphones of the GoPro Hero 13 Black. So here is an audio sample of the Osmo Action 5 Pro. But right now we're using the built-in microphones of the Osmo Action 5 Pro. And how does it sound? I always find that DJI has really good audio when it comes to their cameras, their action cameras. So again, this is audio coming from the built-in microphones of the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro. Now another area where the Action 5 Pro really excels over the GoPro Hero 13 Black, and that is when it comes to low light footage. There's a new mode with the Action 5 Pro called Super Night Mode, and it is like night and day difference compared to shooting on a GoPro. You can see in this footage that it's much brighter, there's more detail, and there's less smearing. Now, if you're going to primarily be filming at night in dark interiors, there are better cameras for the job, such as the DJI Pocket 3. It has a mechanical gimbal and there's a 1-inch sensor. But if you are a person who does occasional low light filming, the Action 5 is definitely the better choice for those scenarios. Now, if you're buying an action camera to do vlogging, there are a couple things to keep in mind. Both cameras work extremely well for vlogging. However, the differences is when it comes to audio and connecting a microphone. Both cameras are capable of connecting external microphones and wireless microphones. The DJI Action 5 Pro just makes it a little bit easier. Both cameras are capable of connecting a Bluetooth microphone. And this year we can now actually connect one of the DJI Mic 2s directly to your GoPro Hero 13 Black. But just in my experience so far over the last couple weeks, I find it a little problematic. There's been some issues, which I am going to talk about in my full review. That's going to be coming up in a week or so. Whereas with the Action 5 Pro, they just connect every time. There's no issue. And on top of that, with the GoPro, you can only connect one wireless microphone to it. Whereas with the Action 5 Pro, you can pair two wireless microphones to it via Bluetooth. On top of that, if you're going to connect a wired microphone, the Action 5 is capable of having a wired microphone plugged directly into it, such as a USB-C lavalier. whereas with the GoPro Hero 13 Black, in order to connect a hardwired microphone, you are going to have to purchase the Media Mod, as this is the only way to connect a microphone directly to it. On top of that, the Action 5 Pro has an interesting feature, a secondary track backup feature. So if you're recording with an external microphone, the camera will automatically make a backup audio track using the built-in microphones that will be saved on the memory card as well. So it's a great safety feature, that way you always know you have a safety backup track. So it's definitely a nice feature. So if audio flexibility is your priority, definitely the Action 5 Pro excels in that area. And again, if you're going to be using the Action 5 Pro for vlogging, it also has another feature that you might find interesting. It has a subject tracking feature which can help keep a subject in frame, whether you're vlogging, having the camera pointed at yourself, or you're filming somebody else. If you've ever vlogged with an action camera, you know sometimes the framing can be difficult, especially if you're walking, you're talking, you're maybe not paying 100% attention. This will always make sure that you are centered in the frame. Now there is a limitation to it. It can only record at 2.7K. But if you're vlogging for social media, that's more than adequate. So between the audio flexibility and that new subject tracking feature, the Action 5 Pro is a great camera for vlogging. Now, when it comes to filming vertically and filming for different platforms, definitely the GoPro Hero 13 Black has the advantage. Right within the main menu here, we have a framing tool, and we can have it set from widescreen. We can shoot in vertical. We can shoot in a 4x3, so we get extra area at the top and bottom if we're cropping it manually. But we also have the full frame mode, which is basically almost a square. And this mode can be super beneficial because when filming in that square aspect, you can crop it vertically or horizontally. That means you can film once for multiple platforms. So it's really convenient in that aspect. Whereas with the Action 5, you can definitely film vertically with it, but it does require you to rotate the camera physically. In order to do that, you do have to have the frame. Once installed in the frame, you can mount your camera horizontally, or with the same magnetic mounts, you can mount it vertically. So it does work, but it does require that extra step. You do have to rotate the camera, and you do have to have that case, the frame with you. So if you're out filming for the day and you didn't bring the frame with you, there's no way for you to get that vertical footage. So when it comes to framing and vertical aspect, definitely the GoPro Hero 13 Black has the advantage. The DJI Action 5 Pro has 48 gigabytes of built-in storage. The GoPro doesn't have any built-in storage, memory card only. It's a really nice feature because if you're out filming and you fill up your memory card, or perhaps you forgot a memory card that day, you always know you're going to have 48 gigabytes of storage to work with. So definitely a nice feature. The GoPro Hero 13 Black now has GPS built into it again. And that's very important for some creators. They removed it last year with the Hero 12, but it is back in the Hero 13. Whereas the Action 5 Pro does not have built-in GPS. You are able to get that GPS telemetry if you want it, but it does require you purchasing the GPS remote. So there's that extra step. You have to make sure the remote's powered on and connected and has satellites. Plus on top of that, the extra expense of purchasing that accessory. The Action 5 Pro has a new feature this year where it can detect the depth and the altitude of the camera. That information can be displayed on screen. It can be recorded. There's different settings in the menu system for the type of activity you're doing, whether it be hiking, scuba diving, or parachuting. On top of that, the Action 5 Pro can detect when it's in water and automatically start to record. And that can be super beneficial if you're a scuba diver or snorkeling. Perhaps the camera is mounted away out of reach where you can't physically turn it on and off. Maybe you got gear in your hands when you're scuba diving or snorkeling. The Action 5 will automatically start recording as soon as you get in the water. Now, when it comes to stabilization, I think both cameras have pretty equal stabilization. I wouldn't really say one is better than the other. The GoPro does have a little bit of advantage because it has that auto boost feature. The stabilization will be applied depending on how much is needed. So if you're riding a bike on a smooth surface, the camera doesn't need to crop in as much to keep it stabilized. If all of a sudden you're going over a bunch of bumps, it will crop in to give you a nice smooth stabilization. So it just allows for the widest field of view possible, and it will automatically detect that. When it comes to stabilization, both cameras support horizon leveling, and for the most part, it works extremely well on both cameras. Another advantage of the GoPro Hero 13 Black is this year GoPro launched some high performance lenses. We've got an ultra wide angle lens, a macro lens for close-ups, and we have a nice set of ND filters. There's also an anamorphic lens coming later on next year. Now, the nice thing about this new filter system that GoPro has introduced is when they're installed, the GoPro will detect what lens is installed and adjust the camera settings accordingly. And that even goes for the ND filters. It knows what ND filter is installed. You have the options for setting your motion blur, And it will even tell you if you've got one on there that's too strong or not strong enough. So it takes a lot of the guesswork out, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. Now, another important feature of the GoPro Hero 13 Black compared to the Action 5 is with our GoPro we can set our bitrate. We can choose standard if we want to keep the file sizes smaller, or we can set it to a high bitrate. There's an option in the video settings. When we click on it, we can choose standard, or we can put it up to high. Now, setting your bitrate to high is going to drain the battery a little quicker, and it's going to create more heat in the camera. But setting it to a higher bitrate is going to make for better video quality and less artifacting in some scenarios. Right now, unfortunately, with the Action 5, that's not an option. Right now, it's just a fixed bitrate. If you're filming at 4K 60, you're going to have a higher bitrate, better video quality. So hopefully that is something DJI will add with a firmware update. I'm pretty confident that is a feature that DJI will add at some point down the road. Now those are the main features of each camera, the selling points I would say for each camera. Of course, each one has their own little benefits in other little ways. Now one last thing, which could be a really important thing, and this is just my own opinion from my own experience, I find the Action series just has a much more stable platform. It's reliable. When you hit that record button, you know your footage is going to be captured and on the memory card. GoPros are notorious for freezing up, locking up, having corrupted footage. I've experienced that myself numerous times. My friends have experienced it. The footage on the GoPro is great, but there are those times where the camera just isn't responsive. You got to pull the battery out. Sometimes you're recording for 20 minutes only to find out that the camera had frozen up and there's no footage there. So that can be an important deciding factor as well. I've used all the generations of the Osmo Action, the original, the Action 2, the 3, the 4. Actually, the 4 was my go-to action camera all this past year. And not once, I have never once had my action camera from DJI freeze or lock up on me. It's always been super reliable, and that's why I tend to use it more. For me, I tend to use a GoPro when I want to use the ultra wide angle lens or the Max Lens Mod 2.0 with past generations, because you can get an extremely wide field of view that looks fantastic, nice and stable. I wish DJI would do something like that. I hope sometime down the road maybe they'll have a lens system similar to that. But those are just some things to keep in mind when choosing what is the right action camera for you. At the end of the day, they're both great cameras. You're going to capture some incredible footage. So you just have to decide what features are most important to you. Well, folks, that is my comparison of the GoPro Hero 13 Black and the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro. If there's anything I missed that you think a potential customer should know before they purchase either one, leave that information down in the comments. People who are in the market reading the comments would greatly appreciate it. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and found it had value. Give it a thumbs up if you did. That's always greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.